Welcome back, everybody. Hope you guys are doing well. There are times during the live streams or when I'm watching United or thinking about United or reading about United or listening to someone talk about United. You guys can't tell it's how I spend a lot of my day. There are times during these moments where a question or a concept or whatever pops into my brain and it kind of makes me stop and just wonder, right? Just go, huh. You know what I'm talking about. We've been there before. If you guys are been any part of the channel, you're familiar with the concept of the what if, right? That's what we explore. What might have been? What if? We are back today with really episode 10 altogether, but second episode of season 3. Go back and check out that first episode if you haven't yet. They don't go in order, but they are fun to watch them all. But today we're back with a new episode, and we want to take a look at what might have been had one of the most exciting young English fullbacks in recent memory not suffered a horrific injury in a Champions League match. What if United's left back position was dominant and locked in for more than a decade, really? What if Luke Shaw never suffered a double leg fracture against PSV Eindhoven in the Champions League? That's what we're going to look at today. So like the video, subscribe to the channel. If you want to get your own ideas, your own suggestions in for what if episodes, please go check out the membership. It's the best way to do it. I can't guarantee they'll always become episodes, but that does get you the best opportunity. And then if you use your idea, you'll get full credit. Don't worry. So let's get stuck in, everyone. Starting, let's rewind the clock here. United bought Luke Shaw from Southampton in 2014, and he was the most expensive teenager in world football at the time. It cost roughly 30 million pounds at the time. I know we look back and that's what it was like, but remember, this was fresh off the back of being in the PFA Team of the Year for 13-14. And by the start of the 15-16 season under Louis van Gaal, Luke Shaw had slimmed down, he'd adapted, he was playing some of the best football of his career. And in the weeks leading up to that game against PSV Eindhoven, I mean, he was in the pomp, right? He was bombing forward. He was combining well with Memphis on that left-hand side. And really, he was looking like the next great United, next great English left back almost for the next decade, right? That's what happened. Then that leg break, and it kept him out for almost a full year. Since then, it's really been a struggle for him to come back. You guys, we as United fans, we've been following that around. I mean, he struggled to regain fitness and confidence even. He looked a little hesitant to kind of take on defenders with the ball. He looked hesitant to put himself in a position where he's going to get tackled, or when he looked like the leg break was always on the back of his mind. And what happened is it really led to inconsistent form, inconsistent performances, struggled to find his footing. And, it led to criticism. Jose Mourinho was later on very, very critical of him, questioning even his mentality, his footballing IQ. This all combines to create a lot of setbacks, major mental and emotional hurdles. You're playing a lot of mental games with yourself, and none of it, you don't win any of it. Shaw eventually bounced back, especially under Ole Gunnar and then, Ten Hag's early season as well. But his peak years really were delayed, and he never quite became the global star that maybe he seemed destined to become way back when we signed him. He looked like the next Ashley Cole for a lot of people. But again, it does beg the question why we're here today. What if he'd not suffered that leg break? That's what we're looking at. So that's what we're going to jump in, starting with the immediate season, the season that everything happened, and that's going to be the Shaw and Van Gaal hour. So Shaw likely, if he hadn't gotten that leg break, that following season, that the rest of the 15-16 season, he probably would have obviously continued as our starting left back and arguably one of the best in the league. Again, PFA Team of the Year in 13-14 as a teenager, not a bad company, right? He probably would have built more down the flank, Louis van Gaal, with Memphis and Shaw combining. They were good. They were close friends. They were developing a little bit of a rapport down that left-hand side. And I think that both would have, kind of like what we saw with Shaw and Rashford later on, I think that really could have been a good little combination. Now, unfortunately for Memphis, his United career sort of fizzled out with that, with some just attitude issues. And then with it, though, that chemistry also fizzled out. I think that United would have looked a little sharper in the attack, maybe even pushed City and Arsenal harder when it came to pushing for a title that year as well. I think that we already saw, again, the budding relationship between Memphis and Luke Shaw down that left-hand side, I think really could have blossomed into something really effective. Moving on to the Mourinho years with Luke Shaw. This is where it starts to get a little troublesome. So if Shaw had already established himself as a nailed-on, confident, attacking left back, Mourinho may not have targeted him with so much criticism. We all remember Jose Mourinho's harsh comments, right? But had that injury not cost Shaw to lose a year and more than a step or two, I think he really could have become one of Mourinho's most trusted players in the side. Again, kind of like Ashley Cole was at Chelsea for Mourinho as well. Obviously, it's hard to know, but again, this is why we do the episodes, right? I really think that Shaw had everything to become like one of the best left backs in the world, honestly. But I think that's really how it would have gone under Mourinho. What this also would have meant had Shaw not getting injured, we would have seen a little bit of a shift in United's transfer business. Without doubts about Shaw's fitness long term and without the constantly recurring little injuries, United may not have had to spend so much money on guys like Alex Tellez or Tyrell Malacia or maybe even Diogo Dalot in some cases. We wouldn't have maybe had to loan Sergio Reguilon. We wouldn't have had to look at short-term fixes like Daley Blind at left back, or maybe had to shoehorn Ashley Young in as a converted fullback. Maybe someone even like Alvaro later on, maybe he could have been naturally bedded into the team. A young Alvaro a couple of years ago could have come in to start rotating with Shaw as Shaw was starting to get, 27, 28, 29. I think that really could have been a really good passing of the baton. All that money could have been directed towards other areas of need over the time. We've constantly neglected midfield, never really tackled the striker issue in an adequate fashion. And it's not Shaw's fault, but the fact remains a fully fit and firing Luke Shaw without the recurring niggling little injuries could have seen us allocate a little more money instead of spending a lot of money on left backs and loans and shoehorning other players in who that wasn't their position to begin with. What else we might have seen differently is Shaw's legacy at United in general. In this new timeline, Shaw goes on to develop seamlessly into one of Europe's best left backs from 2015 onward for literally the last decade. Instead of being seen maybe as a talented player who always has to, resurrect his career, Shaw might have had a continuous upward trajectory, in the same bracket as, a young Jordi Alba, a Marcelo, or even David Alaba, at their peak. Because when he's fit, Shaw has been excellent, and he was our 18-19 Sir Matt Busby Player of the Year. He was United's Player of the Year that same season. He was in the PFA Team of the Year in 2021 under Ollie. He was United's Player of the Year that season as well. Like, when he's fit, when he can stay fit, Shaw is unstoppable. I mean, who knows? By 2025, he could have well been remembered as United's best left back since Dennis Irwin. He could have surpassed Patrice Evra for all we know. And without that constant caveat of just the injuries, or what if about the injuries? So, oops, sorry, wrong one. Technology. Let me move him off the screen here. So, of course, there's potential arguments, right? There's always that argument that maybe attitude, lack of commitment might have played a big role as well in Shaw's up and down fitness, and as a result, his up and down career. Some will claim that maybe his fitness issues may have been lessened if he just worked harder, kept in better shape during the offseason. I'm not going to go into the insults. I find it ridiculous. Others point to the fact that maybe it took new left back signings to push Shaw to try harder. Remember what we always used to say, like, Tellez comes in, he's pushing Shaw, he's raising Shaw's game. He's getting the best out of Shaw right there. And then, now a lot of United fans also point to, like, on the surface, Shaw always somehow seemed to be fit enough for England duty, but not really United duty at his worst. So I think that because the injury happened when he was so young, it's going to be difficult to know if the leg break was a major contributor or if Shaw's always had some sort of motivation issue. But I think that when you're in the PFA Team of the Year in 13-14 season as a teenager, I think, and you've been in PFA Team of the Year again, you've won all these awards, I think you can see that it seems to be like the fitness somehow always seems to creep into Shaw's mind. It's clear that he had the skill. It's clear even at a young age he had the motivation and performance levels. The injury, though, definitely, I think, played a bigger role. Keep in mind, too, that some of the most common issues facing athletes, especially after long-term injury, are going to be things like depression, anger, anxiety, struggling with motivation, not to mention constant fear of re-injury which I do think Shaw struggled with, as we spoke about. And then when sport is such a major part of your identity, basically your life, and it's taken away by such a serious long-term injury, there are those worries, those uncertainties, those existential worries. Who am I without this? Is this the end of my career? What am I going to do? How am I going to survive? All of that pops. I was just speaking about this in my PFA class this week. Like, all this stuff pops in your brain. Like, Les Ferdinand was talking about it. Edu was talking about it. Lee Richardson at Liverpool talking about this is the kind of stuff that happens. So I do wonder, if it's chicken or the egg. I'm leaning more towards the injury being a major contributor, and Shaw maybe not having as much support from the club in terms of just the mentality part of that, moving past it, not kind of fixating on it a little too much, and having someone really to help him get through some of those uncertainties. Because prior to his struggle with these injuries, which started really with that double leg fracture, he was widely regarded as one of the best young up-and-coming left backs in the world. Excellent for defensive positioning, reading of the game, bombing forward. If he never broken his leg, he could have very likely become world-class Luke Shaw. An almost era-defining left back much earlier. I know I feel like I'm going hard. I'm not. This is not just me saying this. This is how he was being talked about. Again, our left flank, maybe with Memphis, maybe Rashford later on, even Martial later on, that could have been a really good dominant left-hand side, really good tandem partnerships going on. I really like when we see Shaw, Rashford in their pomp, 22, 23, 2021, like, really good output from them. The injury didn't ruin Luke Shaw's career, but it definitely delayed it, and it definitely kind of put it on a different trajectory, we'll call that. It took him a couple more years to kind of get back to his best. And again, it did create this whole narrative of stop, start, being injury prone. And unfortunately, it has seen us, have to kind of work around that. It has seen us have to spend when we maybe wouldn't have. It's not Luke Shaw's fault. A double leg fracture is not your fault. But at the end of the day, it's hard to almost stop and wonder what might have been, what could have been, because he was so good when we got him. He's been so good when he's been able to stay fit. It's just a shame that he can't. And so who's to say? But I do think that if Luke Shaw hadn't broken his leg, he could have been a dominant, like, Dennis Irwin regen for a decade at United. And I think we would have seen a better output from that left-hand side and maybe a couple more trophies. I don't know. But you guys let me know what you think. It's fun to look at some of this what if, right? But let me know your thoughts in the comments. What do you think? Did you watch a lot of Shaw? Were you excited about Shaw? What did you see from Shaw? What have you seen from Shaw when he's been fit? What do you think about it, the fact that he's not fit? I want to know your thoughts. I want to know your opinions. Let me know in the comments. Please make sure you like the video. Please make sure you subscribe to the channel if you are new, guys. Check those memberships again. Starting 11 Legends members, you do get to suggest ideas for what if episodes on top of other things as well. And then go ahead and share these videos if you guys find them interesting. Post them to your socials. Like I said, tell your doctor, tell your cashier, tell your husband, tell your wife, tell your grandma, tell your kids, tell them to tell their friends. Whatever you got to do. I love doing it. I know you guys enjoy watching it. Let me know your thoughts, and I will see you guys on the next one. Later.